Conspiracy theory. Today, almost any time we watch the news, investigate a controversy, or try to discuss an important matter, we hear the phrase conspiracy theory. Today, conspiracy theory almost always means a crazy, crackpot idea with no evidentiary basis, grossly illogical, something that we can and should immediately dismiss. Was it always like this? How did conspiracy theory acquire this popular, pejorative meaning? You may have heard the claim that the pejorative conspiracy theory slogan was created by the CIA in 1967, a claim made by Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and others. How strong is the evidence for this claim? In this analysis, I use the Google Ngram viewer and the underlying Google Books database. An Ngram is a technical buzzword that just means words and phrases such as conspiracy theory. The Google Ngram viewer shows the frequency of words and phrases in the underlying database, which includes books, popular magazines, newspapers, and other sources going back to 1800. The blue line in the Ngram viewer plot shown here shows the frequency of use of conspiracy theory in English from 1930 to 2019. The straight red line shows the level of literal, non-pejorative use of conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory was largely, not entirely, but largely used in a literal way prior to the assassination of President Kennedy in November 1963. In the plot, you can see a surge in the pejorative use of conspiracy theory in the 1960s, flattening in the 70s, and increasing exponentially from about 1980 onwards. The phrase conspiracy theory has been used in English for a long time, usually in a literal, non-pejorative way prior to the Kennedy assassination. The Google Books database shows most of these literal uses were in legal books, accounts of court cases, and criminal investigations. It was also used by historians, reporters, and others to discuss situations where a criminal conspiracy may have been involved in the events. For example, questions about the activity of Cecil Rhodes and his associates in the Boer War and the conquest of what is now Zimbabwe, once Rhodesia after Rhodes, in southern Africa. However, in his influential book, The Open Society and Its Enemies, published in 1945, the philosopher Karl Popper used the phrase conspiracy theory of society to ridicule the notion that all of society is controlled by a super conspiracy, an easy straw man to attack. Popper, a Jewish refugee from the Nazis, was primarily attacking the conspiracy theories of the Nazis at this time. In 1955, the Columbia University historian Richard Hofstadter published The Age of Reform, which won the Pulitzer Prize. In this book, he used the phrase conspiracy theory of history in much the same way Popper used conspiracy theory of society, to indicate a crazy idea that all history is caused by conspiracies or a super conspiracy. Hofstadter was a member of a highly successful, politically connected Jewish family. If you've read or know the bestseller Gödel Escher Bach, the author, Douglas Hofstadter, is his second cousin. With conspiracy theory of history, Hofstadter was primarily ridiculing the 19th century American populists and accusing them of anti-Semitism for pointing out the German Jewish background of a minority of the top, mostly white Anglo-Saxon bankers like J.P. Morgan, who had a Welsh background, involved in the scandals and controversies over the gold standard at the time. Most of these German Jewish ancestry bankers were members of families such as the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Seligmans, and others from the kingdom of Hesse-Kassel. They were often intermarried. Where did the pejorative use of the shorter phrase, conspiracy theory, come from? In 2014, Lance DeHaven Smith published an influential book, Conspiracy Theory in America, that cited a 1967 declassified CIA memo as proving the CIA had orchestrated the use of the slogan, conspiracy theory, to discredit critics of the Warren Commission. DeHaven Smith was a professor at Florida State University, a close friend of former Florida Democratic Governor Reuben Askew, and a proponent of a number of conspiracy theories used here in a literal sense, including the CIA killing Kennedy and orchestrating the 9/11 terrorist attacks as a false flag. The book claimed use of conspiracy theory as a pejorative slogan started in 1967 and exploded thereafter. Such high-profile figures as former Fox News announcer Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones have cited the book's claim. Does the Google Ngram viewer support this widely repeated claim? The blue line on this Ngram viewer plot shows the frequency of use of conspiracy theory from January 1st, 1964 to January 1st, 1968. This runs from the assassination of President Kennedy to the immediate aftermath of the CIA memo, apparently sent in January of 1967. The red line again shows the fraction of literal use of conspiracy theory. Close examination of the underlying book's database shows the literal use of conspiracy theory dominated in 1964. Nonetheless, there was an uptick in the use of conspiracy theory as a pejorative slogan in articles on the Kennedy assassination, the Warren Commission, Barry Goldwater's presidential campaign, and the John Birch Society, which had close ties to Goldwater in 1964. The pejorative use of conspiracy theory surged in the fall of 1964 with the release of the Warren Commission report, which claimed Kennedy had been killed by a lone nut, Lee Harvey Oswald, who was in turn killed by another lone nut, Jack Ruby, who somehow managed to kill Oswald in police custody. Jack Ruby's lawyer, Melvin Belli, published Dallas Justice just ahead of the Warren Commission, using the phrase conspiracy theory to ridicule any suggestion his client was part of a conspiracy. The Warren Commission report was released to the public September 27, 1964, with the 1964 presidential election little more than a month away. The then widely read, influential magazine Life gave front-page coverage to the Warren Commission report. Its coverage features the pejorative phrase conspiracy theory and suggests skeptics of the official story were crazy. The influential Harper's Magazine published a long essay, The Paranoid Style in American Politics, by Richard Hofstadter, in its November 1964 issue. This would become a widely read and distributed book. I was encouraged to read this book as a U.S. history high school student in the 1970s. Although the essay does not use the standalone phrase conspiracy theory as a pejorative slogan, it does promote the same views as the conspiracy theory of history from his Pulitzer Prize-winning The Age of Reform book published in 1955. A number of less prominent examples of this pejorative use of conspiracy theory appear in the book's database in 1964, with more in 1965 and even more in 1966, before the CIA memo cited by DeHaven Smith. (1966) saw the publication of two popular books, both cited in the CIA memo. In late June 1966, Edward J. Epstein published a detailed book, Inquest, raising various questions about the Warren Commission's conclusion, especially the difficult-to-believe magic bullet theory to explain the numerous injuries incurred by the President, John Connally, and others that are difficult to reconcile with the 3 bullets allegedly fired by Oswald. This was followed in August with Mark Lane's Rush to Judgment. These widely read books are specifically cited in the CIA memo in January of '67. They are likely much of the reason the memo was issued. It is important to actually read the memo carefully. The phrases conspiracy theories, conspiracy theorists, and conspiracy talk are used only one time each. The memo does not outline a public relations campaign to use conspiracy theory as a pejorative slogan. Rather, it focuses on rebutting specific claims suggesting Lyndon Johnson and or the CIA, perhaps working together, conspired to kill Kennedy. Although the use of conspiracy theory as a pejorative slogan did increase somewhat after the memo in '67, certainly not exponentially, and in 1968, we can easily see in the Google Ngram viewer plot shown here, the use of conspiracy theory flattened out in the 1970s, not increasing exponentially until the 1980s. Here we show the Google Ngram viewer plot of the frequency of use of conspiracy theory from 1930 to 2019 again. The blue line in the plot. This plot shows a surge following the assassination of President Kennedy and nearly no increase in the 70s. The red line, again, shows the fraction of use of conspiracy theory in the literal non-pejorative sense. The exponential growth starts visibly in the 80s, continuing to the present. There are historical examples of highly successful campaigns to promote the use of a pejorative slogan. This new plot shows the frequency of use of the pejorative phrase, "Where's the beef?" "Where's the beef" was the central slogan of a campaign by Wendy's restaurants in 1984, making fun of the alleged lack of real beef in hamburgers of competitors such as McDonald's, Burger King, and others. This phrase was picked up by Democratic presidential candidate, former Vice President Walter Mondale, to shoot down the Democratic primary challenger, Senator Gary Hart, in 1984. This plot shows a dramatic spike in use of "Where's the beef" in 1984, followed by a slow drop-off in use to a much higher level than the past in 2019. The pejorative phrase "witch hunt" predates the foundation of the CIA in 1947, surging dramatically in the late 1930s, many times its historical rate of use. The red line in the Google Ngram viewer plot shown here shows the dramatic surge in the late 1930s, surging even more between 1947 and 1957. Witch hunt dropped in use in the late 1950s after the censure and death of Senator Joseph McCarthy. But use of witch hunt has grown exponentially, not as dramatically as conspiracy theory, since 1980, being used repeatedly by President Trump, for example. Where did this unprecedented use of the pejorative phrase "witch hunt" come from? The surge predates both the foundation of the CIA and its predecessor, the wartime OSS. Witch hunt was used by the communists and their allies to attack investigations into communists and communism during the Nazi-Soviet pact in the late 1930s. subsiding during World War II when the U.S. and the Soviet Union were allies, then surging dramatically with the post-war anti-communist investigations of the House Un-American Activities Committee, Senator Joseph McCarthy, and quite a number of others that aren't as well known. Conspiracy Theory in America, DeHaven Smith's book, has a number of glaring factual errors. One of the most extreme is shown here. The range of officials targeted for assassination in the post-World War II era is limited to those most directly associated with foreign policy, presidents and presidential candidates, and senators. Skipping a little bit. The only member of the U.S. House of Representatives who's been targeted is Gabriel Giffords in January 2011. This statement is false. U.S. Democratic Representative Leo Ryan was killed in 1978 by an actual conspiracy, a hit team apparently sent by the Reverend Jim Jones, an odd figure in San Francisco Democratic Party politics in the 1970s, part of the infamous Jonestown Massacre. U.S. Democratic Representative Larry McDonald of Georgia, also the chairman of the John Birch Society, was killed in 1983 when his airplane, Korean Airlines Flight 007, was shot down by the Soviet Air Force. DeHaven Smith counts U.S. Senator Paul Wellstone's death in a plane crash as a likely political assassination, but he skips the disappearance of U.S. Democratic Representative Hale Boggs of Louisiana, a member of the Warren Commission, in 1972, who apparently died in a plane crash. The plane and his body were never found. What to make of the astonishing growth of conspiracy theory as a pejorative phrase since the assassination of President Kennedy and especially the 1980s? The claim that the 1967 CIA memo initiated the use of conspiracy theory as a pejorative phrase, meaning a crazy crackpot idea with no basis in fact or logic, almost the only way the phrase is now used outside of a courtroom, is simply false. It looks much more like the pejorative phrase grew out of historical phrases like Popper's conspiracy theory of society and Hofstadter's conspiracy theory of history, evolving into the use of conspiracy theory against critics of the Warren Commission report. Finally, embraced and extended by many interest groups in the 80s up to the present. It looks like organic growth as PR experts reused and reinforced a demonstrated successful slogan, adding other phrases such as conspiracy theorist, conspiracist, and even redefining conspiracy as a pejorative one-word slogan, making it increasingly difficult to discuss or think about events that may involve an actual conspiracy in the literal sense. To learn more, you can read my book review of Lance DeHaven Smith's Conspiracy Theory in America, where I discuss some of these issues in greater detail and in written form. The long form URL is https://wordpress.jmcgowan.com/wp-the-conspiracy-the-theory-the-label/. There's also a short bit.ly URL, which I will spell out at this point. https://bit.ly/3 capital P lowercase s capital K capital O lowercase e capital B. The slide also includes a QR code that can usually be successfully scanned with a smartphone and a QR code scanning app. This concludes this video presentation. If you like this video, please click like. Please click subscribe and the notification bell if you would like to receive more content from us. You can avoid internet censorship by subscribing directly to our RSS news feed. Please consider sharing the link by email and on your website or blog, in addition to liking, upvoting, or sharing on increasingly censored, advertising beholden, big company social media. We have encountered such censorship. Mathematical software is developing algorithms and software to automate data analysis, reducing the risks of costly errors and increasing the predictive power of the results. You can support our work financially by subscribing on our Patreon page, https://www.patreon.com/mathsoft, or scanning the QR code in the lower right corner.